So here we go, another little video. If you can do math, you can do anything. I don't know the author of this famous quote, but I want you to kind of think about that. If you can do math, you can do anything. And is that necessarily true? And in my opinion, I believe it's absolutely true. And the reason why I believe it's true is because math is the foundation of everything that we learn and we go off of. And the one thing that I get with a lot of students is obviously the whole question of why do we have to know this, and when are we going to use this in our real life? And it's a pretty obvious answer. When you're talking about polynomials, you're not going to have to know how to do polynomials when you're in the grocery store, or you're not going to know how to simplify irrational numbers when you're at a job being a desk clerk. But the important thing about math is not always the application, and there's a big push, especially in math class. One thing to make math class more creative, which is great, and I'm all for that. Or also about we need to make sure students understand how we use math in real life. Well, that's very important as well, and I'm all for the kind of push for that. But I think sometimes we need to understand that's not going to just solve everything of why we need math. Why do we need students that understand mathematics in our society? And the reason why we need students to understand mathematics in our society, not because we know that polynomials can do rocket propulsion and how we can apply all these different skills that we learn in math class, but that the understanding of mathematics, if you can understand the rules and the patterns that you see in your mathematics classes, you'll be able to understand the rules and the patterns of anything that you're going to work with. I can't remember, there's a quote or maybe a study that went on that one of my college professors told me that the farther you go in your math course, the farther you're going to go in any sort of other study that you do. Meaning, doesn't matter what kind of person, what you want to do in your life, but the farther you go in your math class, the farther you're going to go, or the deeper you're going to get into any other study or discipline that you decide to do. Also, it was correlated that the farther you go with math, so far also does your salary and earnings. And I think that's also correlated with how far you go into a certain discipline, or how more advanced you get. And I started thinking about that, and I really looked into the reasoning. And it wasn't until I took so many math classes to obtain my bachelor's that I kind of looked back and I understood that math is everywhere. The understanding of mathematics and why we do the things we do. A lot of times when we're first learning, it's hard to understand. We don't see those patterns, and all we see is a lot of times application. And if you were taught mathematics like I was, it's all just about application, 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 and here, do this process, do that process, and you lose a lot of the reasoning of behind in the mathematics. But if we can get an understanding of what we're doing and why we're doing it, not so much of how it's used in real life, but why things are related the way they are, students, when they get out into their real life and whatever they decide to do for their job or whatever they decide to study, they'll be able to see there's correlations with the mathematics that they studied. And I think that's the important part. And it's a tough job to sell as a math teacher that, when you're going to use this in your real life, because a lot of the applications and processes we're not going to use in our real life. But that's not the important thing that we need to convey to them. It's not how you're going to use that, because you could say that with all the other studies, social studies or, in history, why do you need to know certain dates? Well, you don't need to know, certain dates, but you need to know, why people back in the day, why leaders made certain decisions, what was happening at that time that affected the decisions they made, or with those decisions they made, how did that affect the whole world or society or anything else that you might, be working with. So when dealing with mathematics, a lot of it's all stressed on the process, because that you have to get students to that process to be able to move on to their next level. But I really believe the major important thing is just understanding why we're doing things and how the mathematics relates to one another. And therefore, when you're able to look back and you can bring everything together, no matter what you decide to do, you're going to have a foundation for success. So there you go. There's my little quote for me of why math is important in our real life. And remember, you can do math, you can do anything. Thanks.